Dr. Alan Christensen here. This is a topic I love to give people clarity on. So many have what I call pill stress or pill distress. They're taking so dang many pills. They don't know what's helping, what's not, what they need, what they should be avoiding. I'll give you guys clarity. What should you take every day? What should you avoid every day? So starting step would be calcium. This is something that is so important, but also so dangerous. So many papers have shown that a lot of common vitamins containing calcium raise the risk for heart attack. And at the same time, they actually do not lower the risk for bone fracture. They don't help the bones. Pretty wild. So an important thing is to take calcium in forms that are very soluble, that readily dissolve in water. Calcium citrate malate is probably the best documented version of this. It's like the calcium found in plants. And it does good things to your bones, but no bad things to your heart. So, top priority. You really want to avoid all other types of calcium. The carbonates, the plain citrates, the bone-derived calciums, they contain lead and they make your body calcify. They do bad things. So number 2 would be magnesium. Magnesium is so important, and based upon how we fertilize our crops, there's this mixture called NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, makes crops grow, washes away magnesium. So even healthy, good organic foods are still fertilized, and they tend to be lower in magnesium than what our body's needs are. Many papers have shown that even by the most old-fashioned, outdated, weak standards, by the old weakest tests for magnesium, upwards of half of the people that end up being hospitalized for any reason are clinically low in magnesium. So it's a very important thing to get. The same thing applies for it though. Some forms are better than others. Citrate malate, good one to go for this also. Number 3, vitamin D. This is wild stuff. Many people avoid it or they take less of it in the summertime. A recent study I just read, so funny thing, this is a real study. They tracked roughly 40 surfer dudes. No kidding. So Hawaiian people surfing, but the twist on this was they were Caucasians. They were like light-skinned. They were people that should readily absorb vitamin D from sun exposure. The darker your skin, the more you block it, so you don't get toxic if you're in the sun all day in some African-type latitudes. But no, Caucasian surfer dudes, 11 hours per day on average of sun exposure. They're living outside surfing. Their measured vitamin D scores, the average for the group, was below what's safe. So the sun just does not cut it. You've got to take some vitamin D. It takes a substantial dose to get in your system, and ideally it's also measured and modified. So next up, another important thing would be essential fats. And this one's had a lot of confusion. There's a lot of 3, 6, 9 products in the market. You don't need 3, 6, 9. You do need 3, but you do not need plant-derived 3, which is ALA primarily. So you do need EPA, DHA. Those are the 2 most important active omega-3 fats. You do not need 6 or 9. 6 we get plenty of in our diets, maybe even too much. 9 we do get in our diets, but the most important thing that reason we don't have to take it is because we can make it. We can make all the omega-9s we ever need. So omega-9s as supplements, those are extra empty fat calories, not needed. So you need the 3s. So next up, here's a big one too, selenium. There's so much data about selenium being cancer protective, good for your thyroid, helping your body detoxify, so many important things, and also lacking in our diets. I'm a fan of Brazil nuts, a handful a week, but it's also smart to add that in via supplementation. Some types are better absorbed than others. There's a lot of data on the glycinate forms being well absorbed, other types pretty hit or miss. Next up, another big one would be zinc. We do measure for this routinely. So many healthy people come back low in zinc. I saw that in myself recently and it blew me away. I'm eating clean and living right the best I know how, and that showed up low. So it's something that we do lose more of based upon just our genetic variability. Zinc is involved in over 300 important chemical reactions in our bodies. Making hormones, fixing our brain, fixing our connective tissues, getting waste out of us, so many things. Here's another big one after zinc. Oh, one last thing about zinc. also hard to absorb. Glycinate, chelate, wonderful type. Other types, pretty hit or miss, especially in combination with other nutrients. Have you heard of molybdenum before? A lot of us have not, but it's very critical. As much as our health is affected by chemicals coming in and chemicals not going out, molybdenum may be one of the big reasons chemicals do not go out. If you're ever sensitive to like sulfites or preservatives or whatnot, you may be lacking in molybdenum. It's also a big part of many allergies, and people are very commonly deficient in molybdenum. So that's a lot of pills. There's a couple things at the same time that you really do not want to take and you really do want to avoid. First up would be iron. And this is funny because there are many cases in which iron is really good to take, but you really want to have some guidance and some feedback on that. If you are lacking it, it's very critically helpful. It's a wonderful thing for you. But it really doesn't work great when it's mixed inside of a multivitamin. So iron inside of a multivitamin, what that means is you will not absorb your zinc or your selenium or your calcium. They do not play well together. So just even taken at a separate point, at a separate pill, it can work. If you do not need iron, you should not take iron. As important as it is for those who lack it, it's just exactly that dangerous for those who do not lack it. So have some feedback on that. Routine supplementation, leave it out. Another one in the same category would be iodine. So funny thing, we need this. We need between about 1 to 300 micrograms. People average between 200 to 240 from their diets. Diets of all types. The one exception, vegans, they can run a little lower. They can average about 150 micrograms. They're still okay. The pitfall about being way above that target is you hurt your thyroid. And typical intakes show that most people are in range. If you're on thyroid meds, you easily would get pushed above range if you're supplementing with any iodine on top of what's in a regular diet and your thyroid meds. So you really want to avoid that in routine supplementation. And last but not least, you do not want to take folic acid. Now, please hear me say folic acid and not folate and not MTHF. So you really need something like folate in your diet. Leafy greens, beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds. And ideally, you get some folate or MTHF in your multivitamins as well. But folic acid is poison for a really big percent of people, upwards of half of the population. And there's honestly not clear ways to know which half you're in. So best to avoid. The data is strong that the folic acid raises the risk of colorectal cancer. The rates of that disease, they've been climbing ever since we started fortifying folic acid in our foods. So you got all that, what you want, what you don't want. If it helps, I've made it really easy. We've done a dose pack to where 2 little packs, you're covering all your bases for the important stuff, none of the bad stuff. Dr. Christensen, happy to shed some clarity and reduce the pill stress. Take great care of yourselves.